call this meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission to order. City Clerk, would you please conduct roll call vote?
Commissioner Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Dolan is absent. Commissioner Kucharski.
Present.
Commissioner Collier is absent. Commissioner Barraza.
Present.
Commissioner Singh is absent. Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Ward is absent. Chair McCoy.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. We will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand? We will start with the approval of the agenda. City Clerk, are there any changes or proposed changes to the agenda?
There are no changes.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. This item is approved. We will now move on to approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes from October 28th, 2024?
There are no changes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Kucharski. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. This item is approved. We will now move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to the commission?
I'm sorry. No, I
Thank
don't.
you.
I don't.
Does the Highest Needs Neighborhood Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to the commission? No update at this time. Does the Cultural Arts Grant Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to the commission? Thank you. We will now move on to member reports and comments. As a reminder, this is a time for commission members to report anything they feel important for the public or commission to know, but it's not a time for discussion. Commissioner Barraza, do you have any reports or comments?
I do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller.
Nothing for me right now, thanks.
Commissioner Kucharski.
Not at this time.
Commissioner Soto.
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to city administration and park staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission?
Not this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone from park staff have any reports or comments for the commission?
Chair, Aaron Gary, Parks Director. Just wanted to note that a trade memo was sent out yesterday afternoon to the commission with follow-up responses to questions from last week's meeting. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. We will now move on to unscheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issue within the jurisdiction of this commission? You will have up to 3 minutes. If you would like to make any comments regarding workshop items, now is the time to do so. If you would like to make a comment regarding any of the scheduled hearings, comments will be taken when each item is called. And I have a card from Kari Daniski.
It's for an agenda item.
Okay. Do we have anyone online?
Yes, we have Brandy in.
Oh, sorry about that. Hi, yes, thank you. I just want to, well, first let you guys know how much I appreciate the work that you're doing. And I also want to note that I appreciate with the Instagram social media that there are posts regarding these meetings to ensure that to get the information out there and that they post the agenda items as images is helpful. One suggestion I would like to have, because I appreciate that that the hearings that you guys are having for the recommendations for the budget, that there is hearings that they're focusing on this and getting these things out early, but would very much like to recommend, if there is a way that with social media, with whatnot, for things like this, if we could get notification on things such as the hearings much further in advance, as the information comes out on Fridays, which is great, but as you all know, this is this week and the past time has been very, very busy. So in order for people to have an opportunity to prepare, I would like to ask if there is potential for items to know about the agenda further in advance, but certainly for any things as far as hearings and whatnot to be, see if we have postings further in advance so that we can have more time for our community to be able to engage. And also to see if there's ways that we could have things like posted at parks, and want to recommend, I know that we're in budget, but possibly places at parks to have bulletin things to let people know about not only things going on, but also opportunities to speak up within our park system. Thank you very much.
There are no more speakers online.
Okay, I'm gonna go back out to the room again. If we have anyone in attendance who would like to make a comment under unscheduled communication, you will have up to 3 minutes. If you would like to make a comment on any of the workshops, the time will be now. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, thank you, Chair McCoy. Sarah Parks, Assistant Director of the San Joaquin River Parkway and Conservation Trust. I haven't been to one of these meetings in a while, so it's really nice to see everybody. I would like to make just a quick comment on the first workshop tonight, which will be the presentation on the Landscape Division and San Joaquin River Parkway Measure P funding. As I was reviewing the presentation in advance of the meeting today, there's a slide you'll see in the presentation that references continuing down the needs assessment list. And I am curious to know if that is referencing the report or the needs assessment that was created by QK a number of months ago. We received a draft, the River Parkway Trust received a draft version of that report and provided comments. And to the best of my knowledge, that has not come back to our organization. And I just want to express my concern that the trust is not being engaged in the planning and development process for the assessment and the needs on the San Joaquin River Parkway. And so we ask that as the budget is being developed, that you all advocate for the trust being included in planning for what is happening on the parkway, as is outlined in the ordinance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I will now close unscheduled communication, and we will move on to workshops. ID number 24-1494, workshop overview of fiscal year 2025 landscape, trails, beautification, and San Joaquin River Parkway to inform the FY 2026 budget. Will someone from the Public Works Department please begin the presentation?
All right, good evening, Commissioners. Scott Mosier, Public Works Department. We will work through this, noticing some slides missing, but we'll go through the presentation and go from there. All right. So Public Works oversees the landscape division, including park maintenance and irrigation repairs within the parks, and also within what we call Bucket 5, which we'll go through in the presentation. All right, very good. Okay, this is looking good. All right, we'll start off talking about expenditures. All right. Okay, and pardon me. There's some differences in an email that went out and slides, and so I'm going to be looking up on screen for that. Our apologies for technical difficulties there. All right, so with respect to park maintenance, I want to provide an overview of what's included in current year budget, FY25, in terms of the amended budget, and then also actual expenditures through this time this year. So starting off in park maintenance, category 1, the budget as amended was through, again, amended meaning with council motions, what was finally adopted, $3.3 million in appropriations for Measure P Bucket 1, along with the next line shows general fund at $2.2 million. And looking between the two, you can see the expenditures that we've had that have posted through mid-October in the program. So some highlights with that. We had back in fiscal year 24, a new park maintenance crew was added. All those positions have been filled. I want to note here, park crews fully staffed, and they're maintaining all the current inventory. One change that occurred from 24 to 25 is there was a 4-person park detail crew, and no one lost a position, but there were 4 vacancies that were eliminated as part of the budget. So the year-round park detail crew that was started in fiscal year 24, that's no longer in place. What we're doing as a team is now with any winter season, we're taking that opportunity for those improvements in the parks, any opportunity we have in between mowing cycles to do that type of work in terms of aeration, fertilizing, reseeding, but that's a much smaller group of parks we'll be able to tackle without a year-round dedicated team who would not have otherwise been involved in regular maintenance. In terms of park irrigation, you note the 2 funding sources there. Both we have $1,998,000 in Measure P Category 1. That brings with it $1,468,000 in general fund. And again, you can see the expenditures to date as of mid-October. 2 irrigation specialists in highest needs are currently have been filled. Last year, those were in recruitment. Those have been filled. And once again, we do track on irrigation repairs how much is just due to an aging system versus what level is related to vandalism. And we're finding about 75% is vandalism related. Sometimes that may be the unhoused, breaking into the systems, valves, trying to either run the system or stop the system from running, as well as other vandalism in the community. All right. Moving on then, talking about Category 5. I know the Commission is very familiar with the categories, but especially for public members who are participating, want to briefly recap. Bucket 5, Category 5, has really 3 sub-programs contained within that. The first is for trails and protected bikeways. So, and that covers both trail development, urban greening, and everything from the planning, design, construction, inspection of these facilities. So, and they're within Measure P, there's a restriction that not more than 20% of that category can be used for trail maintenance. So not more than 20%. And also no less than 25% for those shown as the priority network in the active transportation plan. Also 18% of the overall Category 5 is dedicated and restricted for the San Joaquin River Parkway, as noted here, for operations and projects consistent with the master plan. And that work is to be planned and conducted in coordination with both the San Joaquin River Conservancy and the San Joaquin River Parkway Trust. Lastly, 35% of Category 5 is for litter and debris removal or beautification along major roads streets and highways within the city of Fresno and its county islands in the metropolitan area. There are other points there talking about coordination with other projects and also prioritizing those projects that reduce overall water usage, drought-tolerant plantings, and leveraging of funds. Okay, so talking more specifically on these sub-programs, so trail maintenance was adopted in the budget at $560,700 for this year, that representing 20% overall, and we have to run those numbers and look at life to date from the inception of Measure P, the revenue all the way to the present time. For that 20% limitation, staff's been very careful to monitor that. That's what the City Council adopted in the budget. You can see spending on trail maintenance up through mid-October at $159,000, and we maintain currently on a 90-day cycle for those corridors. Also within Category 5 are a number of capital improvement projects. So first on the list, you'll note the Shields Avenue Trail, known as Midtown Trail Segment 1. That is included in the budget, $1,950,700. That is leveraging both funding from Caltrans and in addition, Measure C funding. You can see the total for the segment at $6.7 million. This is part of an ATP grant for that segment. Next, the Southwest Fresno Green Trails. That is actually slated for award of contract by the City Council this week. So, and that's at $2.2 million Measure P, and it accompanies state TCC grant funding. Good news is that state TCC grant is really the primary fund. So Measure P at the moment is serving as contingency for that construction contract. So if all goes well with that, we anticipate actually keeping Measure P funds in the bank, and that'll free that up through successful delivery to go towards another project with any savings on the project. Freeway litter abatement at $355,000. That goes with both Measure C funding and Caltrans funding at $200,000. Barstow bike lanes was in the budget this year. As you can see here, $189,000 included in the amended budget, and that project is now complete. We had actuals at $145,000 out of the $189,000. Okay, speaking a little bit more, highlighting on the highway litter abatement. So you can see some before and after pictures. Services are provided on all four freeways within the Fresno city limits. Right now on the 41, that's a weekly removal of litter. Highway 99 twice a month. Similarly, 168 and 180 are 2 times per month with those funds. And an amazing amount of litter removed. For last year, we provided you with the total for fiscal year 24, 5,000 bags of litter removed, 88,000 pounds. So just a stunning amount. And what would that area look like without that? And again, keeping in mind, Caltrans is funding that program as well. They're contributing $200,000 per year towards the service. Going further through the programs and projects. So within the budget, there's a line item for ATP, trail, and urban greening. As noted here, funded at $175,000. And the actuals to date are at $76,000. So some things happening there, what's coming up, some additional planting along the Sugar Pond Trail and other projects in completion. For the San Joaquin River Parkway, you'll note 2 separate line items here. So we have the operating budget for a dedicated full-time maintenance crew That's at $798,000. And then also there's $350,000 of that category, same thing, the dedicated 18% for the Parkway. And that is set aside not for any ongoing staff costs, but these are for special projects to be undertaken. Those are funds that are available to tackle this list of special projects and deferred maintenance. And again, our team is working closely with the Conservancy and Parkway Trust. Also, this commission has set up a subcommittee to regularly meet and review. So we look forward to, again, working through that and each year just tackling more and more of those items. Some activities are noted here where work's been done, both irrigation repairs, Eaton Trail planting, work on fire breaks within there to avoid the somewhat catastrophic fires and the amount of damage that occurred in years past. Moving on, major street beautification, so that was again approved in the budget. This is out of the litter control and beautification category at $520,000. And we, as of mid-October, we're already $135,000 through those dollars. Lots of tree planting, irrigation work, and mulch treatments on generally on median islands and those buffer areas. Lastly here, there is a brand new project that was initiated through a motion by City Council Member Chavez to add into the budget originally the Fancher Creek Trail. So although you see only $2,800 in expenses right now, the consultant selection process is well underway, and anticipate on bringing that contract to the City Council within the next couple of months. And then that will utilize the dollars and move that forward. I wanted to talk briefly on delivery strategy. So you see a number of appropriations or spending authority in the budget, and to go through these. So walking through trail maintenance, just even looking at our rate of spending, we're well on track to spend the full amount of our operating budget for the year, because that budget is for a full-time crew 12 months of the year to continue that work. A number of these you'll see, such as the Midtown Trail segments, they are all on track to award their construction contracts in fiscal year 25, thus needing all of the appropriations in Measure P for those projects. Likewise, Southwest Fresno Green Trails, that's actually awarding this week on Thursday, if all goes well, and the will of the council is to award that contract. Moving down Barstow Bike Lane, that's completed already as of this point in the year. The ATP Urban Greening, also on track to expend that full amount of funding. Likewise, San Joaquin River Parkway trail maintenance. That dedicated crew will utilize the full amount of Measure P for all the work they performed throughout the year. Then on the San Joaquin River Parkway Capital, while we do not have a finalized list for that $350,000, we're working with our partner organizations. Expect that we'll be able to deliver all of those dollars within this fiscal year. Major street beautification, that is underway now, all be complete by April. And then lastly, Fancher Creek Trail, we just talked about that project, wherein that contract should be at the council and approved within the next 60 days. Beautification, wanted to just provide the commission with some samples and highlight some projects underway there. These were all the fiscal year 24 projects completed, so there are several there. I know I've had the pleasure of the chance to present and update the commission and answer questions on these in the past, including River Vista planting, very significant number of dead trees and diseased trees that were removed and replanted. Cesar Chavez Boulevard, complete makeover of the median islands and tree trimming efforts. Downtown Fresno, as we've talked about before. Cedar Avenue, so a big change from before and after, including some work near Shaw Avenue near Fresno State. Lots of new trees planted, 160 altogether with irrigation, and then including some boulders and wood chips to complement the area. Blackstone and Herndon, another one, big change, major facelift of that area and a prominent gateway in the city. And lastly, West Avenue has since wrapped up since we last talked about the beautification projects. Bullard Avenue as well. So for fiscal year 25, there were 4 that were approved in this fiscal year's budget with those beautification dollars. One is Cesar Chavez Boulevard from Maple to Chestnut. That is underway as we speak and scheduled to be wrapped up right here in November in the current month. From then, staff will be moving on to Herndon Avenue, Palm to Blackstone in the Pinedale community area. It's one of our most lacking areas on that corridor, and there will be room for 42 trees in irrigation that will be added. That's scheduled to be complete next month in December. Barstow Avenue is our largest area of new trees going in. 110 trees planned for Angus to Cedar for that area. And with the addition of some dollars through American Rescue Plan funds, not only will we have trees and irrigation, but we're also going to have a very attractive bark treatment on the medians as well to help, water retention and overall aesthetics. And then lastly, another Southeast Fresno project. This is Belmont Avenue between Clovis and Fowler, another 60 new trees going into those islands. All right, and with that, I know I've gone through a number of slides, provided information. With me this evening, I have my administrative manager, Yvonne Diaz, who's responsible for our department budget. Assistant Director Brian Russell, who oversees our landscape operations as well as street maintenance, traffic signals, street lighting, and graffiti. And yep, that's our team this evening. So I was looking for one more. All right, staff's available for any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to start off the questions tonight. Thank you for the presentation, Scott. I have a couple of questions. When you say that Measure P serves as a contingency for the Southwest Fresno Green Trails, so that means in case there's not enough funding from TCC, that's when Measure P would kick in?
So great question for clarification. So originally, there were $2.2 million of Measure P on the project to go along with the TCC grant funding because the project cost was significantly higher than TCC alone could afford. However, as part of the city's process with the TCC grant, there were some other grant recipients who were unable to deliver their projects. Those funds were then repurposed, and the Southwest Fresno Green Trail received $2 million of additional TCC funding. So at this moment, we do appear to have a near fully funded project, and there has not yet been an adjustment made with the Measure P funding. So essentially, it's there as a contingency. Staff anticipates needing very little of that, and that there will be opportunity for that to then go towards another project in that category.
Will that other project be located in Southwest Fresno, or would it be another project within the city of Fresno?
That has not yet been determined, and I would anticipate that would be through the normal budgeting process. both incorporating input from the commission here, and then also, of course, the city council.
It just makes sense to me, but I don't work in public works, that if money was allocated to this project from Measure P, that if the funds are not used, that it should be another project that's going to be done in Southwest Fresno with those funds that have already been allocated. If I'm saying it correctly, it just makes sense to me instead of having to go back to the drawing board. Thank you for that answer.
Thank you.
I have another question in regards to the San Joaquin River Parkway and Conservancy. Has there been any talks with staff from the River Parkway in regards to the budget and their needs and assessments that's needed out there as you guys work to put this budget together?
Yes, our team has been really working to build rapport. There have been some field visits and site walkthroughs to really get everyone's eyes on the different facilities that are out there, whether we're talking about aging, older pump systems, irrigation, and from that point already our full-time crew's been able to tackle some of those issues. And we look forward to more. We look forward to more of that just day-to-day interaction.
And even though our subcommittee is fairly new assembled in the commission, has there been any talks with them as well in regards to the San Joaquin River Parkway and Conservancy and their input on what needs to be done?
Most definitely, yes. If I could, I'd like to invite my Assistant Director, Brian Russell, to come up and speak to that. Brian's been very engaged in those details.
Good evening, Brian Russell, Assistant Director of Public Works. I would say yes, that we have been engaged with both groups. There's been a number of the suggestions that they brought forth that we were able to incorporate into our maintenance plan. I apologize if everybody hasn't received a copy of that. We'll make sure that's done soon. But there's already been a lot of wins, a lot of simple wins that's been a long time coming. Scott mentioned that we repaired irrigation systems that had been damaged and unrepaired for a long time. That's going to end up leading to being able to replace over 65 trees that have died or gone missing for one reason or another along the McMichael Loop Trail. Our crews are working on repairing fences that have been down and dilapidated for a lot of years. We've placed boulders alongside some gates, done a number of things that both the Conservancy and the Trust were concerned about. There's been some things that were brought up that we weren't able to address, but they were outside of our jurisdiction, but they were well received. So I would say all in all, we are talking, we're working well together, and I look forward to continuing to do that.
When you say outside of your jurisdiction, do you mean someone else was responsible for that?
Yeah, what there is there's some handmade like trails and stuff happening on county property up closer towards Eaton Trail, and so that's not something that we're able to address with these dollars. We have turned it over to the county, but I'm not sure what they're doing with it.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Soto, do you have any questions in regards to this presentation we just received?
No questions. I do just want to express my, support for Chair McCoy's comments in that if, those funds for the West Fresno Trail that are going to be primarily funded by TCC. If the Measure P funds are not utilized, I think it does make a lot of sense to have those funds be used in Southwest Fresno specifically, since that's what they were, designated for in some other capacity on some other project. I do see a lot of beautification projects, I'm a little disappointed to not see more in the southwest area, because I do feel that there is an obvious need there. So, I just want to express my hope and that those funds will be maintained in that area. And thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Kurcharski.
Hello, I have a question about the cruise. I was curious how many different, I just want a better understanding of how that's structured, if you wouldn't mind. How many different types of maintenance crews do you have, and like, are they separated by their different abilities? Like, is there like one specific for trails only, and is it only for a specific area? Like, how do you organize the crews? And I imagine they're across all these different projects and programs that you plug them into. Is that how that works? I don't know if you have them specific to each project, but you're moving them around, and I don't know how many crews you have. I just would like a better understanding, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. And those crews, they do vary in size and makeup depending upon the workload. So, for example, on a trail crew, we don't have a mowing operation as part of that work. With a trail crew, we typically have the lead worker, we'll have the laborers, and then also we'll assign an irrigation specialist. So in the case of, let's start with San Joaquin River Parkway and that work. That is a full-time dedicated trail maintenance crew only for the parkway. So including Eaton Trail, McMichael Loop Trail, segments further west along the San Joaquin River Parkway. So we have that dedicated work. We have, and again, part of this is based upon funding and eligibility. So with the measure, we have dedicated funding for the San Joaquin River Parkway area, meaning we're able to provide really a better level of service there with that full-time crew, and for, as Mr. Russell mentioned, things like fence repair, gates, tree planting and those projects. For the rest of the city, we have a full-time trail maintenance crew. So they are on a 90-day maintenance cycle currently, but they're responsible for the rest of the city, which would mean in Southeast, say the McKenzie Trail, in North Fresno, we have the Sugar Pine Trail, the Willow Avenue Trail. So the second crew, it really, Measure P capped the amount of measure funding that could go into that work. We actually supplement that with community sanitation fee dollars, but at the end of the day, we're basically only able to fund the one crew currently for all the other citywide trail maintenance. Then moving beyond that, so we have several crews for park maintenance. They're organized with mow crews, and it depends upon the parks, what type of mower, whether we have the large tractors, whether we're talking gang, bump mowers, that operation typically has a light equipment operator for that work, and then other laborers. We have the irrigation crews separate for that work. Staff, depending upon the assignment and complexity, may work either in isolation or may team up on larger and more complex projects. But all told, roughly 130 staff in the landscape maintenance operation. That also includes our median island maintenance, again, not within our parks and trails area, but we do have 2 full-time crews for median maintenance in the city. And then lastly, we have the tree program, where we have two-person crews who tackle our reactive maintenance. Lastly, then there are the community facilities districts, which is basically an additional special tax on the property tax for generally newer neighborhoods that where we maintain the buffers around the perimeter, pocket parks within the track. So just in summary, the assignments are really varied. The size of the crew varies, but they are dedicated by those programs and funding streams to each operation.
That sounds pretty complex to keep that all sorted together. Thank you for sharing. I guess, what would you say is the greatest need or deficit in, ongoing maintenance? Because I know last time you were, when we were this place, I think it was last year, I don't even remember, you mentioned that it'd be great to have more crew members, like double. I don't know if there's a particular area that is constantly, I guess the answer could be everything, but if there's something that sticks out, what would you say for as far as like maintenance goes and crew work goes, that the greatest needs are that aren't being met, like for the park system and the beautification?
That's a great question. I think our constant challenge in the park system is really the deferred maintenance on aging irrigation systems that are in the ground and are long past their expected service life, but our staff team, both the team in the Parks Department and our Public Works Landscape Division, I feel do really an outstanding job going above and beyond to try to hold these systems together. So that's a significant need, but the price tag is fairly high to actually go into a park and replace the entire irrigation system. So that's, dollar-wise, that's probably number one. If I had to answer for the trail system, I think our greatest need is in the general trail maintenance. Thankfully, the city was able to reach an agreement with the Fresno Irrigation District for putting bankside trails along the canals. The challenge with that again, we're grateful to have the opportunity, but the cost of implementing some of the terms is high. When the city builds that trail, the city takes on all responsibility for the unhoused along that corridor. The city takes along all responsibilities for trash on both sides of the canal bank. That's part of the agreement. And then the city also pays any additional maintenance costs the irrigation district may incur as a result of the trail essentially being in their way. So there are a number of terms which make us pause as we look at taking on additional bankside trail opportunities.
Any other questions?
I'll stop for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller? Thank you. Commissioner Barraza?
Yes. I wanted to thank you for having done a great job in the completion of the widening of Peach Avenue. Beautiful landscaping, and the area is starting to look like the north part of town. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but it is true. Anyway, the question I wanted to ask you, why was the sidewalk of the east side built of pavement? With the upgrade or the construction of a new park right there, does that mean that that pavement is going to have to be removed and then build the proper material of that sidewalk?
So, excellent question. So with Peach Avenue, along the frontage of the South Peach Park, there are both some overhead utilities that will be eventually will be undergrounded, I believe, with the second phase of that park construction. And the permanent sidewalk is very closely tied into the park. So the actual park construction plans will be building the permanent sidewalk, and we do have some temporary asphalt pathways in that area, just to provide temporarily for a safe route to school, while really the permanent installation is going in. So unfortunately, that was not able, in terms of color of money and timing and dollars, that was not able to be built in initially for the street project to do everything. But the South Beach Park will really be finishing that up. And thankfully, the street project was able to relieve the park project from having to do all of the frontage improvements. So I think we see those two projects working pretty well hand in hand. But no, that asphalt path that's not the permanent solution for that section.
And there was no Measure P money used at all for that project, correct?
Not for the street project, no. That was a combination of regional Measure C transportation sales tax dollars, plus the project was mostly funded with developer fees for major street impact fees.
Thank you.
I have one more question. When it comes to beautification, I'm a little sad to see that it's not a lot of beautification going on in South Fresno, particularly Southwest and South Central, but it's a lot of beautification going on in the north side of town. Are there any plans for any type of projects for South Fresno besides the Cesar Chavez Boulevard and what Commissioner Barraza just mentioned?
Absolutely, there are very high needs in that area. And I wish we could have a project, in each part of the city every single year for that work. The prior year had a larger focus, larger investment in the downtown median islands plus Cesar Chavez Boulevard. So I think that's something we'll definitely be looking at in fiscal year 26 as far as those needs. We did have a pretty good investment from the TCC funding in planting along Jensen Avenue corridor and Elm Avenue corridor. But Madam Chair, I agree. There are very strong needs in Southwest Fresno.
Hope to see some projects soon. Thank you.
Part of my question is related to Chair's question. Is the deferred irrigation maintenance, is that the greatest need for that in the southwest and south parts of Fresno that she's referring to? Is that need for that maintenance greatest in those neighborhoods for those parks?
That's an excellent question. I might defer to Director Aguirre as far as just a sense from the Parks Master Plan and some of the look to see where some of the greatest park irrigation. I think I would say our regional parks, dollar-wise, our regional parks are definitely the highest dollar amount. Both Roding and Woodward have the greatest needs. But beyond that, I think a lot of the neighborhood and community parks are similar. If say something was built in the 1950s, we're seeing similar issues there.
Right, I think Director Moser's spot on with our regional facilities as well as some of our older parks kind of in the central part of town, your Romaines, your homes, old systems that have been retrofitted throughout the years. As sports have kind of come and gone, systems have been modified to bring in maybe additional soccer or football fields, and it's just been kind of limped along over the years. So old galvanized pipes, things of that nature, underground that, to Director Moser's point, are a huge impact to the infrastructure cost and something that would be costly in regards to irrigation, so I agree.
Finish? One more question before you go. I know I'm normally pretty much quiet, but I got a lot of questions. So are there any plans to reinitiate the monthly meetings between Public Works, the Conservancy, and the River Park Trustway?
I think we're very open to that and would welcome getting that scheduled.
I think that will be something that needs to be done like ASAP, since they do get 11.25% of the Measure P funding, and they had a lot of input during the time when the Measure P campaign was going on. And The trust and the conservancy does need a lot of work. I've been out there. It's a beautiful place, but it does need some tender love and care, some TLC. So it'd be nice to see Public Works and the conservancy and the Parkway work together along with our subcommittee that is formed, so we can address the concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think
Thank
that's
you for
it.
your time.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to the next workshop. Overview of fiscal year 2025 Park Ranger program to inform the fiscal year 2026 budget. Will someone from the police department please begin the presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mike Landon. I'm a Deputy Chief with the Fresno Police Department. Wanted to talk real quickly about our Park Ranger program. It's really been exciting to see how this program has taken off over approximately the last year or so. We are currently fully staffed or nearly fully staffed at 19 park rangers who are fully trained and assigned out in the policing districts out of our 20 allotted positions. We have ongoing interviews. We've interviewed nearly a couple hundred people to fill these positions, and interviews are ongoing to fill that one last vacancy. Once we get that person hired and trained, we expect to be fully staffed by the spring of 2025. We have there are 20 park ranger positions. The way it's set up is that we have 5 policing districts. 4 park rangers are to be assigned in each policing district. We have constructed a pretty involved training program to onboard our new park rangers. It's about 400 hours of training. Consists of a week of orientation to familiarize themselves with our cars, our computers, train them in CPR, basic first aid. Then they ride with one of our senior community service officers for about 6 weeks, and that's where they learn how to work the radio, how to take reports, and respond to the types of calls that a park ranger or a community service officer would handle. Then, of course, we have them ride with a police corporal for 1 week, mainly for safety, because we do realize that they need to learn how to be aware of their surroundings, because, of course, they can all encounter dangerous situations from time to time. They're trained in bicycle training. They ride with the homeless assistance response team, just so they can learn how that works and how to interact with some of that population in the parks. They also are trained on our Polaris utility vehicle, and they do a ride along with the parks managers as well. One additional bit of training that we've added is crime prevention through environmental design. That's a specialized class that some of our community service officers have gone through and become certified, and they pass that knowledge down to the park rangers so that they can sort of scan the environment and see what may or may not be contributing to crime problems, different things like that. Really, the duties of the park rangers are the visibility and community engagement. We've seen a lot of that over the past year. We've seen some successes. We've had a couple of incidents where they've helped to save lives in the parks. And then obviously there's some minor enforcement, although they're not sworn officers. They do write citations on occasion, and mostly from what I've seen, they're parking related citations, especially when we have the big crowds in the parks. And then of course, identifying or the reporting of crimes. They have the ability to take crime reports if there's a vandalism or a burglary at one of our park locations. And then obviously, I think some of the biggest success we've seen from our talented group of people is their community engagement and with our community events. They're obviously the Easter weekend is an all hands on deck. And then our district captains work with each other to share resources and get the job done on some of these bigger event weekends. Just part of our presentation includes our policy, and it just kind of outlines prohibitive activities from park rangers, because again, they are not trained, sworn peace officers. So their enforcement action is obviously limited to those that I had mentioned, but we want them to avoid confrontation and obviously call in the officers. And part of the strength of the current program is that the park rangers are embedded with the patrol shift. So every day they go to the shift briefing for the officers at the beginning of the briefing. They receive information about what's going on around the district, but they get to know the officers personally. They have radios, they can reach out, and they can also enlist their help if there's a special project or special issue going on at some of the locations that they patrol. And then, of course, we've been having monthly meetings. We really have a strong partnership with the Parks Department, Director Aguirre and his team. We have monthly meetings. We bring in command staff or commanders from each of our 5 policing districts. We sit down with park staff and just kind of, we give the updates as you see in the presentation. We talk about equipment, training needs, problem location, areas that need attention, and just continue to keep that communication for the success of the program. I know this looks, the slide that's up there now looks like quite a bit of a lot to look through, but basically it breaks down our 5 policing districts, the park rangers that are plugged in there. Their schedule, they work 4 10-hour days. Each district having 4 park rangers will have 2 assigned from 6:30 a.m. to 4:30 in the afternoon, and then 2 that are assigned from noon to 10 p.m. Their days off are situated in that there are always at least 2 working, and then they all work together on Wednesdays. And then as far as equipment goes, we have 10 Ford Mavericks. The most recent acquisition of 5 Ford Mavericks. They're finishing the upfitting process at our city shop. That includes the computers and the bike rack and the lights and the radio systems that go into these vehicles. I believe 2 of the 5 are done, and I would expect near the end of the month we should be done with all of them. And then we have the 5 Polaris Rangers, the 10 Trek e-bikes, and then we're finishing off the process of issuing department or city cell phones to each of the park rangers to enhance that communication. And before I conclude for questions, with me here today is Lieutenant Brian Valles. He's been instrumental in getting this program off the ground, along with his strong partnership with the Parks Department. But he's worked very hard, and he's participated in the interviews as well. And that will do it. I'm open to any questions that I can answer.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I have a couple of questions for you in regards to the park rangers. One, on this park ranger matrix, what is the number in parentheses by the name? Like it's parentheses PR12.
Excuse me, I'll take a look here. Oh, that number is their badge number.
That's their badge number?
Yes.
Okay, and then all of them are Park Rangers 1. We have no 2s that are
We
higher.
have 2 2s now. That means that they've successfully completed 1 year of service.
And my other question is, when I'm reading this, Southwest Fresno, their hours for having park rangers are 6:30 to 4:30?
So you have 2 shifts. There are 2. Well, we currently have a vacancy there, and that's where we're actively hiring for. But there should be 2 when fully staffed, working 6:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon, and then another 2 that work noon to 10 p.m. So they overlap each other.
So when we have the one officer working from 2 to 10 p.m., is that one, excuse me, not officer, but park ranger, is that one park ranger working by themselves, or is someone being moved over to help cover the shift?
Well, they do work by themselves, but they're never alone, so to speak. They have the benefit of assistance from community service officers, from the on-duty police officers, and of course their police supervisors. And they can, in fact, if they need help from a ranger from another district, they can certainly ask for that.
One more question. When they spend one day doing crime prevention through environmental design, can you go a little bit more into detail about that training?
Sure. That is something that there's actually an organization, I believe, out of Southern California, or I believe there's a national organization for crime prevention through environmental design. And that's really getting people to take a look at a situation and see what might be the draw for any issues that might be going on. Like, for example, I know in the past, certain locations in the city, there was a 7-Eleven that had a loitering issue with some of the unhoused population, and they had outlets or water sources on the outside of the building, and you kind of scan the environment and see what's contributing to the problem, and if capping an outlet or a water source can help solve that problem, then that's just one example that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. And they're only doing one day of that training?
Correct.
And can you explain why just one day?
Just to, because the community service officers that have received I believe they went to a 5-day training and out of town, most of that, the formal training where you receive a certificate of completion through the association is typically out of town and is cost a little bit more money to send people out of town for training. They're not training the trainers. The training is designed to just simply introduce them to the concept. And of course, they can reach out to the community service officers if they need further help with an issue.
So it's just an introduction?
Correct.
Correct, okay. One more question before I pass it on to the other commissioners. Has there been any discussion into incorporating a cultural diversity training for the park rangers? Because every park is different in Fresno, and I think it'd be helpful.
There is not that I'm been aware of, but we're certainly open to that. Absolutely, every park is different, every district is different, and those types of discussions go on in our daily briefings and with the officers and the sergeants, but we'd be absolutely open to something like that.
I think it'd be beneficial to actually have the incoming cadets that are becoming police officers and our park rangers to do some type of training like that before they're released out in the field. I think it'll help them understand the community that they're serving.
Sure.
Thank you, and I will go ahead and pass it to Commissioner Barraza for questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public safety obviously is a matter of great concern for all of us, and I'm sure it is for you folks. Has the police department set up like a bench or a marking year, I can't think of the word, a benchmark, as I think it's called, to assess how the additional funding from Measure P that's being injected to parks, with the park rangers being a very important component. The other day at another meeting, I asked, what are we doing to address the challenges of the unhoused population, the homeless population in the parks? And I noticed that you offer some training to the park rangers. But I'm kind of interested in learning about how it's measured in terms of any improvements. We expect, and I suppose the public expects, that if we're investing so much more money into the parks, that we're going to start noticing maybe the reduction of reports filed or something, some indicator. Can you tell me what is the tool that your department uses to assess whether we're making progress or whether we're not?
You know, the tools that we can use are calls for service. We can have our analysts look at park locations. What's difficult is to compare one park to another because they're all completely different and all have, you know, differing issues. And of course, the size of the people or crowds of people that visit the parks are all different. But we can look at calls for service to parks as one indication, one measure. Obviously, crime stats for each park, and we can do comparisons to the years prior. On the topic of the unhoused persons in parks, I did receive some feedback, and I have no data, but it's just simply feedback from some of our district command staff and through the rangers, is that we've seen a reduction in a lot of the parks of camping and that sort of activity. I think that goes hand in hand with the recent public camping ordinance that was passed, and we've taken some enforcement effort on that. And then, of course, our park rangers have been active. Many of them get to know the people and by name, and they also know which people might be difficult or even violent, and they know when to call officers in for assistance if we're going to enforce the anti-camping in the parks ordinance. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, and I'm interested in getting a report when you have one.
Okay.
This is very important, and I think we've been talking about this from the beginning since I've been involved with this commission, and I really appreciate. I've been very excited about some improvements that were made. For example, the uniform now looks more like a park ranger. At first, they looked like police cadets, and police officers are wonderful. We have nothing against them, but we felt that the role of the rangers was a little bit different than a police officer, and therefore, you know, this is a good start. So, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Miller?
I just want to thank the department for all the work you've done on this program. I'm very impressed with it, and I've only heard great things from people that I've spoken to, so thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Korcharski?
My question's similar to Commissioner Barraza, but I guess more generally, what improvements in public safety have you already observed in just a year, maybe a year and a half of the program?
Well, in terms of, I think it's just the connection, the presence that we have in the parks, and then the ability and or the partnership of the park rangers to pull in additional resources. Because the park rangers each belong to a district, one of the 5 policing districts. In that district, we have not only patrol officers, community service officers, park rangers, but we also have detectives. Our detectives, they do their work in that particular district, and they have direct communication with the park rangers if there's a break-in or a burglary or a theft of some sort. The detectives and the park rangers speak. The detectives get that information in a timely manner, and it's more eyes and ears. And then, of course, the obvious presence. I've had the opportunity a couple of times to be off duty and be at a park and see a park ranger roll in, and they don't know who I am, they don't recognize me, and it's just nice to have that added presence there.
Commissioner Soto?
Thank you for the presentation. I was hoping you could tell us a little bit more about how the parks are monitored. I see the schedule here, and I see, you know, that each district has 4 rangers. I have children, we frequent parks pretty regularly, and I've not had the pleasure yet of running into a park ranger. So I was just hoping you could talk more about, like, is there certain days of the week that they visit certain parks, or what does that look like as far as how they're monitoring those districts?
It depends on the district, and it depends on what's going on at the time. I know they communicate regularly with the park managers. There's a lot of communication back and forth about where the need is in a particular part of the city. Obviously, some parks might demand more attention and more time than others. So it is difficult to cover every park in the city with, most days of the week in each district, only 2 park rangers working. I know in one district, in Southwest Fresno, they basically have their stops, they do them in an order, unless something requires them to change that order. There's a particular location that needs more attention.
And I think just to add to that, Commissioner Soto, as we meet regularly with PD, we share our monthly calendars and we share our upcoming reservations activities, so they're aware of where activities may be. And I think it's really a testament to the park rangers and the safety in the parks. I mentioned last week the number that we're seeing at our events, and that number continues to rise. With activities, whether it's in a community center or it's at one of our outdoor parks where we have sports fields. And again, I think just seeing the presence of park rangers is a deterrent enough for some to maybe go elsewhere. But in addition to that, I think just the engagement piece that they have with the youth and the seniors in our activities and services we provide, they're constantly coming through and making sure they feel safe as they're maybe leaving the event or coming to the event. So we've seen a lot of great improvements with the addition, and again, we continue to have the open lines of communication and work closely with them as we see things, and hopefully we're proactive with our communication with the park rangers and with Deputy Chief Landon here to continue that safety in the parks.
Well, I would like to see them. I always run into them, but never see them present in the park, to see them engaging with the youth or engaging with residents who are visiting the park. So I would like to see more of a presence of our park rangers in our city parks, especially and particularly South Fresno. But that's my comment. I have no more questions. Any other commissioners? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to our next workshop, ID number 24-1496. Overview of fiscal year 2025 Beautify Fresno to inform the fiscal year 2026 budget. Department of Public Utilities. Will someone from the Department of Public Utilities please begin the presentation?
Thank you, Chairperson McCoy, and good evening, Commissioners and city staff. My name is Mark Standriff. I'm the Director of Beautify Fresno for the City of Fresno, and very happy to be able to present you not just with an update of what we've been doing since the beginning of fiscal year 25, starting in July, but also present the framework for Beautify Fresno 2.0 as we start off the mayor's second term. Just to kind of go over some things, let's see. Just kind of a budget review as we head forward here. These are the monies that Measure P helped pay for, including 2 Beautify Fresno crews comprised of a couple of laborers, utility lead workers, and 2 senior sanitation operators. These are folks that were scheduled into our new quad crews. And what we've basically done is divided the city into 4 quadrants, with Blackstone being the dividing line between east and west, and Shields being the dividing line from north and south. And each one of these crews are out daily, Monday through Friday, proactively picking up trash, specifically illegal dumping, and also notifying our graffiti crews in case there's any tagging that needs to be taken care of. I'll have the results of that coming up in just a bit, but you can see our overall budget of $1.5 million. We're not sure what's going to go on in fiscal year 26 when it comes to revenues, but we hope to maintain at least this level of funding from Measure P in the near future. Our accomplishments to date, as I mentioned, those quad crews, since the start of our service in July, they've already removed over 1 million pounds of trash. And again, this is proactively, not waiting for reports or complaints to come in through 311 or Fresno. They're out there every single day and getting after those biggest areas of needs, and we're really excited about that, mainly because when we first piloted this program, just having one crew going through Council District 7 back in 2022, fiscal year 2023, we found a 30% reduction in the number of calls for illegal dumping. And we're hoping to see those trends continue now that we're replicating this on a citywide basis. We have a number of major events that we do for our volunteers. Mayor's Citywide Community Cleanup Day was the first Saturday in August, and we had over 1,100 volunteers taking part citywide. At that event, we actually had a press conference with Caltrans and the state of California, where the city of Fresno was very honored to be designated as the very first clean California community in the entire state. And for us, that's just an indication that, that we want to be one of the folks that are leading the process of making our area of the Central Valley clean, green, and beautiful. And again, we're very excited to have that designation from the state. We had a great project that just happened in the month of September. Volunteers over a 3-weekend span, completely repainting the inside of the Spiral Garage. It was a mammoth project, and one that took, I would say, well over 1,000 volunteer hours over those 3 weekends. But the inside of the Spiral Garage is now looking spick and span. I want to thank Assistant City Manager Miller for her stalwart efforts in organizing the whole thing. But these volunteers did a terrific job, again, in just the space of 3 weeks. And we're going to look for opportunities to provide beautification efforts for the Spiral Garage as part of Beautify Fresno 2.0. Serve Fresno Day was a big thing. We do this every year with a lot of local churches in partnership with nonprofits like Martin Park and Every Neighborhood Partnership, where we had close to 1,000 volunteers all cleaning in an October Saturday. Fresno Youth Service Day just finished on Saturday. I'm still recovering, but we had 22 schools representing each one of our school districts here in the city of Fresno. That includes Fresno, Central, Clovis, and Sanger Unified, public and private, grade school, intermediate school, and high school students all participating with over 900 students that were out cleaning. And it was just great to see the smiles on their faces, knowing that they're doing something beneficial and being part of something bigger than themselves. And then one of the things that we're really looking forward to, it may happen as early as the end of next week, but as part of a Clean California grant that we had with Beautify Fresno, the state of California, Caltrans, and our Department of Public Works, we have a number of projects that are going along Highway 180, not only on the abutment slopes and the support columns there near First Street and Romaine Park, but the community center there has a mural that's been going up over the last 4 to 6 weeks with a local muralist who has been out there painting diligently and occasionally having some help, but we're hoping to unveil that. And I was talking with Director Aguirre about this earlier. We might have a press conference as early as next week, but we're very excited. That's just the start of what we hope is a tremendous in addition to the beautification efforts that we'll be doing through Beautify Fresno 2.0. And so that's my natural kind of transition into this particular project. The mayor's vision for the second term, he really reached out to every single one of the departments to try to find out how are we going to take what you're doing now to the next level. And so for Beautify Fresno, it was fairly simple for us, because we've been focusing the vast majority of our efforts over the mayor's first 4 years on cleanup. And whether that was trash, whether that was our city crews working or having our volunteers assisting in a small way. We did every once in a while venture into planting trees or helping with a community garden or even these smaller mural projects. But now we really want to blossom with a focus on beautification. I know that's a word that's been used quite a bit here today, but I'm very excited to be able to focus on beautification to extend the cleanup efforts that we're already doing here in the city. You know, the fact that we've enjoyed public support and that it's grown to become one of the most respected cleanup programs in the country, now we hope to do the same here with beautification. And in planning for the future, the word that I used with the mayor when we were talking about that was to be transformational, to do things, because what we're doing now with just picking up trash and removing graffiti, those are all very temporary. We know that trash is going to appear again. We know graffiti is going to pop up from time to time. But if we can provide opportunities, not just for artists here locally, whether they're professionals or students, and opportunities for our volunteers to assist in these beautification efforts, which could, you know, range anywhere from, again, planting trees, building and renovating community gardens, to murals, both large and small, that turning the city of Fresno virtually into a canvas that will not only provide opportunities for folks out there to do things that are transformational, but to create a sense of place and identity. And then deterring, you know, folks from doing anything that would disturb that in any way, shape, or form, adding to the trash or the blight, or to reduce the amount of vandalism that we see, whether it's graffiti or other things. So that's just a kind of start for that. As I mentioned, beautification projects, because the goal is to improve environmental equity. Most of our focus is going to be Southeast, Southwest, and West Fresno. These are the areas that we know they're the greatest need, but also have the most opportunities for us. When we see, and I mentioned blank canvas, when we see a wall, that's an opportunity for an artist. When we see a blank piece of property or land, whether it's the city-owned or somebody that owns it privately, to be able to take that piece and to find a way to beautify it through landscaping and other beautification opportunities. We're doing this with a goal because we're averaging right now 130 to 150 cleanup events per year. On top of that, we would like to add at least one beautification project that volunteers can take part in, and that's going to be our goal. We want to build equitable and healthy communities, encourage people to restore underutilized public spaces into socially, culturally, and environmentally responsible spaces that reflect the overall character of the neighborhood and provide something that people can look at and say, I'm proud of that because that's part of my neighborhood. Here are a couple of just the proposed programs that we're looking at. One is called Help a Lot. This program would kind of work on do-it-yourself projects with local nonprofits, such as Martin Park, Fresno Building Healthy Communities, and more, to identify homeowners in low-income areas with an emphasis on elderly residents to renovate and restore their front yards, using that curb appeal to be able to completely redo and remake what they walk into every single time they come home. The projects would include things like irrigation and fence repair, trimming and weeding, planting drought-tolerant landscaping. Volunteers would sign up to provide manpower, and we're looking at funding that could be mitigated through partnerships with local businesses or some of the major brands like Home Depot or Lowe's, maybe even some local nurseries. We'd also like to do something called Spaces to Places. You know, we see these barren spaces, small, either vacant or lots that maybe not even any bigger than the size of that table over there. But if we can provide an opportunity to transform them into places that improve the safety, the health, and the happiness of the residents and the pedestrians that walk through that area, we do service projects that would identify those potential spaces. Could be anything like street corners, park strips, boulevards, any kind of limited green space, and developing projects that could range in scope from putting planters and benches, maybe some shade structures, paths, and even community gardens. And the goal is to also work in partnership not only with Parks and Public Works on this, but with public utilities to their water conservation program to get advice on drought-tolerant plants or trees, recommendations on water-wise irrigation systems, and watering cycles for both of these programs. But the biggest and I think the showiest part of Beautify Fresno 2.0 would be murals. And the city has not had a mural policy. I know council actually recommended to the city that we develop one Ironically, we've been working on that. In fact, I think the last time that I was in front of this body, I mentioned that I was in the process of writing a mural policy. That was presented to the city manager's office weeks ago, and we're hoping to get that approved so we can start to move forward. This is a proactive plan for the creation, the presentation, and the promotion of public art throughout the community. And the idea is to inspire, to communicate our commitment to the cultural well-being of our city and of its citizens. So the first step for us is to get an existing list of city assets and determine which one of those could be used as a potential project for either professional or student artists to paint. And again, this could be everything from walls, multi-story walls, alleys, bridge rails, utility boxes, and fire hydrants. Once that list is finished, then we can determine the scope and schedule of the projects, keeping in mind that the planning, the logistics, and the funding needed to make them successful within a reasonable amount of bandwidth. I say bandwidth because right now I'm the only person in my office. I lost my community coordinator to a much better job. I shouldn't say better job, a higher paying job with a lot more flexibility because we work weekends every weekend. So I'm waiting for that new person to come on, but once we do, we're going to hit the ground running. We get that list finished, and then the goal for us with this new mural policy is to establish eligibility, guidelines, application process, installation, maintenance, and removal specifications for any project, whether it's city property and any of its assets, or private property where an applicant would come in along with an artist to say, I'd like to paint a mural on the side of my business wall. The idea, though, is to, once we start getting these proposals in, we'd establish a committee that would be represented by someone from the city manager's office, representatives from Parks, from Public Works, Public Utilities, and myself at Beautify Fresno, and of course the Fresno Arts Council. By the way, this new mural policy was developed in concert with the Arts Council, and their help was incredible. They not only had all their own ideas, but kind of directed me to other communities that already have established mural policies. I kind of took a look at communities as far away as Orlando, Cincinnati, San Antonio, up to Seattle and Portland, and then here in California, vibrant mural programs in cities like San Diego, San Luis Obispo, Bakersfield, and Riverside. And so we were able to kind of use all those best practices and come up with something that we think is very exciting. But of course, with that, because under the current amount of funding that we have, at least through Measure P and the general fund, there's nothing right now for murals. So as we're looking ahead toward fiscal year 26, if there's anything that this commission could recommend as far as funding those kind of beautification projects would be greatly appreciated. And that would help us to kind of look forward and to know exactly what's the scope of the number of projects that we'd be able to handle from year to year. Very excited about Beautify Fresno 2.0 because I think it gives us much more brightness. A city that has artwork, that displays its public art, that encourages artists to be able to find opportunities to use their vision and their talent to have something that becomes attractional for people, not just residents, but out-of-towners that come by, and when they see things, and you've seen the murals around here, most importantly, my favorite mural, which is the postage stamp, there off of Tuolumne and Van Ness. Those are the kind of things that help to drive people to want to be part of what we're doing here in Fresno. So with that, that's my presentation. I'm available for any questions or comments.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. I'm looking at Beautify Fresno 2.0, and I'm trying to wrap my head around that you have on here, concentrate on neighborhoods with the highest needs.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been a focus before, so you want to make sure it's a focus now?
Well, I would say because we didn't have this kind of a program before, yes, it hasn't been as much of a focus for the kind of things that I'm talking about. This is over and above what Public Works is doing with beautification. Mm-hmm. So this is a program that's specifically looking for special projects that we could do. We've done a few of them here and there, for instance, the African American Museum there at Broadway and Sacramento. We worked hand in hand with the museum and the students from Golden Charter Academy to help paint a mural there. It was a wonderful little one-day project and very simple, but we'd like to provide more opportunities for students like that, and even the opportunity for them to be able to, let's say they're looking at their school, and if it's something we could work in concert with Fresno Unified, with Central Unified, or even Sanger or Clovis Unified, giving those students the tools to be able to come up with an idea and paint it themselves. Those are things that certainly, but this is, when I mentioned a blank canvas, it's the only thing that limits us right now is funding and logistics, because the ideas we know are out there. People have recommended this to us for years. It's just we never had anything on paper that could say this is our specific beautification policy, at least through Beautify Fresno.
Has there been any discussion with Fresno Unified School District? And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that you were able to partner with Golden Charter Academy, but that is a charter school.
Yes.
But we do have, I believe, the 5th largest school district in California. So we do have a lot of kids. Has there been any talks within those schools, within Fresno Unified School District, for a partnership?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we worked with Mark Patterson, who's one of the traveling art teachers within the Fresno School District. I think he's based out of Sunnyside. But we talked about the opportunity to have students actually design artwork for the utility boxes downtown. Now, that's a project that hasn't been at least approached in any kind of serious, but we've talked about those kind of opportunities before. The only thing that limited us, really frankly, was, as I mentioned, the funding, but more importantly, having a policy in place that we know here's the specific set of steps that need to go through in order for us to successfully provide opportunities for mural and other artwork.
So is it safe to say that since accepting Measure P as a win and starting to allocate the funding, that Beautify Fresno has been pretty much about picking up trash and cleaning up neighborhoods, and now the Beautify Fresno 2.0 is going to focus more on educational policies and other projects?
Okay, let me try to rephrase that. So,
You don't have to rephrase it. It's just a yes or no question.
Okay.
Because Beautify Fresno before, and if I'm not wrong, when you brought it to us before during budget times, it was just about cleaning up, like on Motel Drive and Parkway. You guys were cleaning up and beautifying the neighborhoods. But now the mayor has a second vision, and now it's transformative. So now you have educational opportunities, you have projects, you have a new mural policy. So is it safe to say that before, when Beautify Fresno first came into conception, especially to this commission, that it was focusing on cleaning up neighborhoods and making those neighborhoods beautiful? But now 2.0 wants to focus on something else.
Well, not something else.
In addition to,
yes. So we're doing a both and kind of thing. So yes, you're correct. The primary focus was all on basically cleaning up as a part of beautification for the neighborhood, because that's really the place where you start. You got to make sure it's clean, and then you can add to it after that. Now, that's not to say that we turned away anybody that came up with an opportunity for working on community gardens, for planting trees, for painting murals like that. But those were very limited because, again, we just didn't have a policy in place for it. But I'm very excited to be able to start this.
And my question in regards to community gardens, especially in the south part of town, a lot of residents have been, well, the south part of town has been redlined for many, many years. And is there any, when you talk about building a community garden, is there going to be any testing done on the soil to make sure it's not contaminated, so you won't be planting fruits and vegetables and things like that on that strip of land? Like you said, a table could be a community garden. Are you going to test that to make sure there's no chemicals in the soil?
We have to go through the entire process, and that includes making sure that before we start, we're safe to go. So yes, that's correct.
And if the strip of land is owned by a private owner, how would that owner be compensated for Beautify Fresno 2.0 to use that strip of land?
Well, again, our plan is to be able to provide, because typically what we do right now is we make sure that anytime we do a cleanup event, a project or whatever, it there's no cost to the individuals that are involved in it, but the cost comes from Beautify Fresno. Or it's provided by donations, and we've gone through gazebo gardens, we've gone through a number of the other nurseries, we've had lumber companies donate, all of these things come into place so that when we're doing a project, the people that are connected to it in the public are not, I would say, penalized by having to pay for it themselves. So our goal with a Help a Lot program or the Spaces to Places program is to bring our own funding, all of our resources in, we help take care of it, and then hopefully, if it's a community service project, the volunteers come in and all they have to worry about is sign up, show up, and help beautify.
Because there's a lot of blighted places in South Fresno, and then especially in the residential areas, you can have a house here, and then you can have a large strip of land here, and then you can have 2 more other houses. So are you talking about utilizing that strip of land that's in between those 2 houses, or and how would you do that? And if that strip of land is owned by the neighbor next door, how are you going to compensate them to use that strip of land? Are you going to ask them to volunteer it? Are you going to explain the project? And if they want to be compensated, will you compensate them to use that out of Measure P funding or city funds? Or would you move on to something else?
Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we want
to
identify those areas where, but we wouldn't be going out to individuals necessarily and asking them to improve their properties. I mean, that's something that code enforcement does, but that's strictly from a maintenance standpoint. But as far as developing something there, I wouldn't say that if it's a vacant lot that's owned by a neighbor next to another house, that we would do anything there like what we're talking about, because we're talking about reimagining what that piece of property looks like. I think we're looking at smaller areas, mostly city-owned, that would be easy for us to go in and say, we're going to tackle this because we know it's a fairly, and I hate to use the word easy because none of this is going to be easy.
But it's easier if it's city property versus private property, I guess.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of that question.
It's easier if it's city-owned property versus private property, correct?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but again, if somebody on a private property wants to come in and say, listen, I'd like to do something a little bit different, I'm happy to start discussing that process with them. That's not a guarantee that we would go ahead with anything because there's a number of factors, as you well know. But I don't want to say no to anything right off the bat. I'm a person that likes to help people get to yes. And that's what's been, to me, been very successful about the Beautify Fresno program to date, is because when somebody wants to come and clean up something, they can pick a Sunday afternoon. They could do it first thing in the morning on a Monday, and I'll bring the tools, and we'll just go have fun picking up garbage.
And you mentioned that there was a partnership with Fresno Building Healthy Communities.
I know there is a partnership, but it's only been for cleanup events so far. But
yes.
we would reach out to nonprofits like Building Healthy Communities to be able to see if there's a connection there that we could do. But we've been out to in fact, we've done a number of cleanup events with some of the young leadership folks out there
yes.
Along where the headquarters is. And be very excited to be able to find other opportunities, especially because they know the neighborhoods very well. They know the people in need. And if they can direct us and actually kind of help in the planning process, that would be wonderful.
That'd be great if you can explore that partnership. I used to be the project director for Fresno Building Healthy Communities.
Yes.
And before there was a Measure P, we actually went out and picked parks or businesses within the place we called it, which was South Fresno, and we would clean up the building, paint the building. When it was a park, we would clean up the park, repaint the bathrooms and things like that. And that would be a good partnership to explore. So you might want to have talks with them to talk about some type of partnership.
Oh, I look forward to that. Thanks.
Thank you. And I can open up the floor to other commissioners for questions. Commissioner Barraza.
Yes, Madam Chair. Something I noticed you did not mention anywhere is what it used to be called the Adopt a Park Project, that I think it had a new name, Love a Park.
It's called Love Fresno, yeah.
To me, that was an excellent program that allowed outside resources. It didn't have to be Measure P. State funds,
Yeah, and we're still doing that. In fact, I just got a request for an individual to adopt Think White Park. So we're still adding individuals and groups.
But it's a very good program that doesn't require a lot of resources.
Right.
That you should mention it here because it's part of a beautification effort. And our own
That's true.
nonprofit has planted a lot of trees in city parks and adopted a park that wasn't even a park. And Building Healthy Communities was very helpful with us when we started that. The other question, something that's really unclear, because the way you show the requested or the number for 2025, how much money is Measure P money and how much is general fund?
So roughly 2/3 of our funding is from general fund and 1/3 is Measure P. So it's 1.5 from Measure P and $3 million from general fund.
Okay. And has that increased
No,
substantially?
that's been pretty much the same since fiscal year 2020. Well, it would have been 2020. Well, actually, we didn't have any funding in fiscal year 21, but starting in 2022, that was it was all general fund money until Measure P funding became available, and then we really structured it that way. So it's grown incrementally, but not substantially over the last couple of years.
Okay. Something that has become a very nice investment of Measure P funds is new murals. It kind of scares me when I see a new mural policy. I mean, I feel that things are working very well the way they are right now. But I kind of want you to clarify. I'm sure you're trying to make it better.
Well, so the murals that you've seen around town are basically almost all of them, with I think maybe the exception of the huge mural that's on the side of the CMAC building, because the city does own that property. The vast majority of them are private property owners who have just gone ahead and said, because it's their property, they can do, so as long as they're not, making anything that's truly, that might be considered offensive or detrimental to the overall look or feel of the neighborhood, they were allowed through code to be able to put those murals up. But what we were deciding is that, when we went through and realized that the word mural didn't exist in municipal code, it was important for us to actually come up with a policy so that in the future, we've got something specific that we can follow, a process that goes step by step, and there'll be a packet for those folks out there that, if they've got their own properties, would like to go through.
So we're going to get some administrative rules for how murals are implemented?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
No, I'm just trying to understand what exactly is the new mural policy.
The new mural, because the city didn't have any policy at all when it came to murals.
Okay.
So we're creating a mural policy from scratch and have it now so that there's actually guidelines in place from the initial, here's the idea that I have, to the maintenance and the upkeep, and who's responsible for that.
Okay, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yes.
And when you get into the arts side, things get kind of controversial and complicated. And the one thing that I noticed in projects along the Cesar Chavez Boulevard is the concern of people that do murals on the graffiti that can be applied to the murals, unfortunately. And one artist selected an area that was fenced in just to add protection to his artwork. And I foresee that in new mural projects in Southeast Fresno, for example, that we're going to see some form of protection of the artwork. And do you have any ideas on?
Well, that's actually part of the mural policy. So in coming up with the actual proposal, the artist knows that there has to be some sort of anti-graffiti protection. There are a number of products that are out there that help to take care of that. And that they are responsible for the upkeep, unless it's something major or damaging. But that's all included in that policy. So again, we've got that set in there so it's easy for everybody to understand up front. If I'm going to put a mural up here, whether it's something that's on my property or the city is providing, that an artist can come in and create on, that kind of protection is included into the overall, I guess you could say, contract. But keep this in mind, and this is something that as I was doing my research amongst all of the different cities that have very successful and extensive mural programs, they have found that there's a dramatic reduction in the amount of vandalism. In fact, oddly enough, there's an unwritten code amongst graffiti artists, if we could use that term, that if somebody's put up artwork on the side of a building, they are very hesitant to want to try to put any other graffiti or tagging over the top of that. It's not to say that it doesn't happen. But what they found, and that's one of the reasons why we thought it was important to really kind of ramp up the number of murals that we see around town, because that's a deterrent to vandalism and graffiti.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Miller?
Just want to thank you for your work on all of this stuff, particularly the inclusion of young people in the volunteerism, because I think it kind of creates a new culture of civic pride, and I just think that's wonderful. And from the Chamber of Commerce or business point of view, I just hope there's nothing in the new mural policy that would discourage private property owners with privately funded murals from creating them, because as you mentioned, pretty much all of the nice ones in town have been just the idea of the property owner with no permissions required from the city, and I sure hope that continues.
Oh, me too, because again, the idea was to create a structure in which private property owners, as well as local artists who would like to use city assets, could present something to us and say, this is what I have in mind. Am I in compliance the whole way through?
I guess what I'm saying is I hope private property owners don't have to present anything to the city, because that will be a disincentive. I know
Well,
it would be for me.
it's a guideline for us. It doesn't have to be. The only thing that we would have a committee look over would be artwork on city assets.
I think we lost our quorum.
Uh-oh.
We did? Yeah. All righty. Like 5 minutes? Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break so we can get our quorum back.
Sure.
I do apologize for that.
No, that's
And then we'll
quite
bring
all
it
right.
back up to
Happy to be
answer
here.
more questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ready to resume? Commissioner Kurcharski, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a budget question. Just curious. It says Measure P funds for Category 5, and then just in the breakdown for Category 5, is it for the 47%, 18%, or 35% of Category 5 breakdown I don't know if you'll know the answer.
I don't have that answer, so.
Maybe someone else does. I just wanted to know if it was for the litter and debris removal part, or if it came from.
Oh, no, this should, I believe
Development,
it's, right now it's all coming out of the Category 5 for that street maintenance and beautification. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
I'm putting them on the spot.
Give us one moment here. We don't want to guess.
Right.
Okay. I was, yeah. You know the answer?
So the question was how much of it is for Beautify, or?
The question, to repeat, is of the Measure P funds for Beautify Fresno, what part of the Category 5 allocation is it? Is it the 47, like, is it the 47 for acquisition, development, improvement? I don't want to read through all this. Or is it the other one that starts with litter and debris removal, landscape beautification, planning design? It seems like there's 3 different parts of bucket 5. And I was curious which one of the 3 the Beautify Fresno funds come out of, or how that's broken out, or maybe it's a combination.
It is a specific subparagraph. Let me just find the right one for you.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Ed?
No,
It's
no problem with that.
35%. It's under the 35% of the overall 11.25%. And I'm referring to Director Mosier's slide. 35% of the fund shall be made available for litter and debris removal along major roads and streets within the city of Fresno, along highways, landscape beautification and restoration projects along major roads. I believe that's the section that beautifies, pulls from that bucket.
I guess the next question is that 35%, 100% of the Beautify Fresno bucket?
No, that's one, well, so again, we get 1.5 million total from Measure P. So 100%, I think, of that total comes out of that 35%.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering if the 35%, if there's more available than your budget for Beautify Fresno out of Measure P funds.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, 'cause I was just wondering if some of these other funds went to, I don't know, Public Works or to your program, because your program's not under Public Works, is that right?
No, it's under Public Utilities, Solid Waste.
Okay, just was wondering. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation.
Commissioner Soto, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time, but thank you for that presentation. As a parent, as a community member, I'm excited to see more engagement and buy-in from especially the youth component, and just seeing our young people invest more in our communities and have that sense of ownership. I think that's something that I've tried to instill in my own kids. And so having more opportunities for our students and young people to get involved in that way is something that I'm excited to hear about.
Well, and thanks. If I could just say one more thing along that note. One of the things that I didn't mention, but I know that I've spoken about before to the commission, is the fact that we have Beautify Fresno clubs. And again, they represent K through 12. It's, public, private, grade school all the way through graduation senior year. And they work on their own projects, so it provides leadership opportunities for them. We have an online environmental education curriculum. It's a week's worth of lesson plans and sample questions and projects that they can do. And my goal, hopefully through Beautify Fresno 2.0, I'd love to triple that number. I'd love to have, by the time we roll around the end of 2028, I've got 75 schools. And again, it's good because I get new schools that pop up every day. Not every day, but I'm seeing a lot of interest out there because teachers are talking to each other and they're saying, hey, we've got this great thing. And if your kids are looking for community service hours, Beautify Fresno is a perfect place to do that. Then we start talking about them actually now investing in a club where they're now working on their own cleanup and beautification projects. And I'm excited for that. So thank you, folks, and appreciate the time here in front of the commission.
I have one more question before you leave. You mentioned that Fink White has been Adopt a Park.
We're actually meeting there this week, so it's not, the paperwork's not in, but yes.
And how many parks have been adopted? Do you know?
I think the latest count is 12 since we started.
Okay.
I don't have the list off the top of my head, so.
Can you make sure that you get that to us, please? The number of parks.
Number of parks, yes.
Yes. And what are they responsible for when they adopt a park? Just to explain to the public.
Right. So they're really responsible for just on a, we hope that whether it's, some people do it more than once a month, but at the very minimum, once a month over a 6-month period. So it's a trial period to make sure that they understand that this is something we need to have them show up. We provide all the materials, so they get safety vests and gloves, paper pickers, trash bags. They let us know when they're coming out to clean up that park, and then we'll take care of removing the filled garbage bags after it's finished. So, but they provide the volunteer effort just to go around and pick up, and a lot of it's just the little stuff. But the little stuff actually means a lot. I mean, our park maintenance crews do a terrific job of going through, and they get the majority of the big items, but it's the little bottle caps that end up getting run over by the lawnmowers, or a paper wrapper someplace, or a Doritos bag that shows up in the middle of the day. Those are the kind of things that, if left unattended, can tend to cause some issues. And so that's our goal, is to give them the opportunity, regardless of how much trash they actually pick up. And I've said this to the mayor many times. To me, Beautify Fresno isn't so much about results. Anybody can get results, and you can kind of gauge how you're doing. But for me, it's about the opportunity. It's about the opportunity for individuals and groups to raise their hand and say, I just want to help, but I don't know how to do it. Beautify Fresno gives them an opportunity. All they have to do is show up for a couple of hours at a time. We provide all the materials. They do the cleanup, or they do the beautification project, and they go home with a tangible result that they can look at and say, look, we did something really good here today. So that's, for the Love Fresno program, and specifically for adopting a park, even if it's just a once a month, it's a chance for, let's say it's a life group from a church, maybe it's a school sports team, maybe it's just a bunch of friends that live in the area and want to do something nice for the neighborhood. We'll provide that opportunity for them, and I think that the benefit that they get is not so much the results of how big their trash bag is filled by the time they're finished, but the fact that they did something positive that had a positive impact on their neighborhood.
Didn't we have something like this before, prior budget cycles, where we had to adopt a park and it wasn't too successful?
It was instituted by Mayor Swearingen during the Great, not the Great Recession, but was that what it was called? Great Recession? I mean, I've lost track. There are so many fiscal emergencies that we have around here. But for that particular time, because the city didn't have the resources to be able to properly man all the parks, they put it out there mostly for nonprofits to be able to look at and say, we're going to maintain these parks. But it kind of hit a plateau after a while, and I don't know when it kind of fizzled a little bit, but we made sure that when Beautify Fresno started up in January of 2021, that's one of the things that we wanted to focus on, to go back to those folks that at one time had said, yeah, we'll adopt a park and see if they're still interested, if they're still doing the regular maintenance, or more importantly, would they like to start up again, or maybe just let us know we're finished so we can move on and find somebody else that could take over that particular location.
I would like for myself and my fellow commissioners to receive more information on the Adopt a Park and the partnerships that, or the nonprofits who are currently adopted a park. And I would like to also see some results, or just hear like some of the challenges and some of the successes with the adoption of a park.
And actually not just nonprofits. We have a number of businesses and small groups.
Well, whoever you have partnerships with,
Certainly.
I would like for us to be able to have that information so we can review it. And
Will do.
that's all my questions.
That's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right.
All right, we will now move on to hearings. ID number 24-1490. Hearing actions pertaining to the Parks After School, Recreation, and Community Services, Parks Department fiscal year 2026 budget build as it relates to capital projects, after-school recreation and community service programs, and trails beautification in the San Joaquin River Parkway. 1, presentation overview of the fiscal year 2026 budget build process. Secondly, receive public input on expenditures related to the Parks Department fiscal year 2026 budget. Thirdly, make recommendations to the City Council for adoption of expenditures in connection to the Parks Department fiscal year 2026 budget. Will someone from the Parks Department please begin the presentation? It's a mouthful.
Apologies for that. Good evening, Chair McCoy and members of the Commission. I'm Ed Chenevere, Assistant Director for the city's Parks Department. And I'm back again for the third time this budget season, the fiscal year 2026 budget season, to tell you where we are in the process and what the next steps are. The first slide I added to this presentation, I know we didn't go over this one the last couple presentations, but we had it in that very first one, is the breakdown of the Measure P expenditures, expenditure categories, all of the appropriated revenues and expenditures in the fiscal year 2025 budget. So this really is the entire Measure P allocation in FY 2025 on one slide. I know we've gone over this several times, but I'll just really quickly run down across the top of this slide. You can see which department's budget you'll find that specific allocation of Measure P in. Directly below that, you'll see Cat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Of course, those are the expenditure categories of Measure P. Below that, there's a number that identifies what we call in the city a sub-fund, which makes sure that we have all of the funds allocated specific to that particular Measure P definition in the ordinance. And then below that, you have the really brief descriptors. So you can see here that the Parks Department has in Category 1, Subfund 2701, which is used for existing parks, for example. And then the presentation of the information here begins with the revenues. So you can see the beginning balance in each one of those funds. So that's the money that was allocated in FY24, which carried over into the FY25 budget. Below that, you'll see tax revenue. So that's the actual Measure P anticipated revenue for FY25, totaling all the way to the left, $46.5 million. But then coming all the way back to the left, you can start to see how that money gets allocated at the individual sub-fund level. So of that, 10.7 million is available for existing parks citywide for the operations and maintenance of it. An additional 10.7 million on the next column there has to be used to operate and maintain parks that are identified in the highest needs neighborhoods. So that's why it's critical for us to identify those sub-funds so clearly. Other revenue is primarily interest. There is a little bit of fee revenue, projected discounts, and things like that that we might get from vendors that shows up in there, but that's primarily interest revenue. And then below that, we have the actual expenditure appropriations, and those are broken down by parks operating, public works operating, public utilities operating, the park ranger operating budget, Finance has a little bit of the funding to help us oversee the ordinance. And then arts and culture operating funding, and of course capital funding, which shows up in multiple departments. So across the left, you can kind of see what the function is that that particular part of the budget is allocated into. And then across the top, you can see if you're looking at the city's budget book, which department's budget you should look to find those specific appropriations. I do want to drill in real quick, Commissioner Kucharski, on your question from the previous about street beautification. So that's on here, you can see subfund 2708. And in that, public utilities, there between the yellow and the red, has 1.5 million of that budget. And then directly to the left, you can see that the Department of Public Works does have 1.4 million of that street beautification budget in FY25. So that beautification subcategory is allocated to both of those departments. All right, good. So next slide here, we have the budget build timeline. So again, we are here today. We just heard from our partners in the Public Works Department on landscape, irrigation, the San Joaquin River Parkway, our police department on the Park Ranger program, and the Department of Public Utilities for Beautify Fresno. We started on October 14th with the capital projects presentation from the Parks Department. Last time, Shelby gave us an excellent overview of all of the programs and services offered in the Parks Department. So at this point, this concludes the series of reviewing those in-depth deep dives of each individual part of the Parks Department's, the Measure P FY25 allocation. So this, after today's presentation, of course, we'll ask you to hold a public hearing and then make any additional recommendations that you may have for the FY26 budget. You will get one more chance at that on November 18th to make those recommendations before we begin our FY26 budget build process in earnest, which again begins with a projection, mid-year projection estimating what we're going to spend this year, which informs how much funding we expect will be available in FY26. We'll then, along with our partner departments, begin the budget build process where we look at the base budget and then make any new requests as well, presenting that to the mayor by March, so that needs to go into the city system. And then in May, of course, the mayor will present his FY 2026 budget to City Council. We'll turn right around and present that to you in May as well and give you your second crack at any motions that you would like to make for the FY 2026 budget after you've had a chance to see the mayor's proposed budget. Of course, we'll take those motions with us and present those to City Council during our budget hearings, which they'll hold before adopting a balanced budget by the end of June 2025. So this last slide here, we wanted to bring back the motions that were made last time so that you have another chance to review that motion language. So last time you made two motions to allocate $75,000 for the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Community Engagement, focusing on female youth. You made a motion to allocate $300,000 to continue the youth fee waiver program and make minor language changes so funding applies not only to individuals but also to nonprofit organizations serving low-income residents, helping them qualify for fee waivers and increase marketing and outreach efforts to encourage higher utilization of the fee waiver. Also, you made a couple of, started to brainstorm some additional motions. So those two motions are listed here, and those include $75,000 for a mentorship program targeting youth ages 9 to 17 with a focus on academic support, workforce readiness, and general mentorship. So of course that, if you would like to make that as a motion today, then you would want to do that. And then funding to add one full-time employee to the Public Works Sustainability Program to expand on their work to provide conservation services. So as Director Aguirre noted at the beginning of the presentation, you also received a tray memo with additional information that was requested last time, which I hope you find useful in framing any potential or prospective motions that you would like to make today. So with that, staff recommends that PrAC make any additional motions that you would like presented to the City Council for the FY25 Measure P budget consideration after taking public comment in the hearing. And before that, I'm available if you have any questions.
Any commissioners have any questions before we go out to the public for comment? All right. Will any member of the public like to provide a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes for comment.
We have Brandy N.
I'm going to go inside the chamber first. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Can I get Kari Daniskia?
Carrie Daneska.
Carrie Daneska, okay.
It's okay. And I emailed these comments earlier, but I'm sorry they weren't 24 hours in advance, so you may not have received them, so I will provide them orally. The San Joaquin River Conservancy, Carrie Daneska, I'm the executive officer of the San Joaquin River Conservancy. The Conservancy requests that the City of Fresno Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission consider the following improvement projects for fiscal year 26 Measure P budget consideration. Project 1 is the Camp Pashayan Improvement Project. Camp Pashayan is a 30-acre property that is owned by the state of California jointly by the Conservancy and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife is currently transferring their interest in the property to the Conservancy, and that process should be complete by the end of this year or early next year. Camp Pashayan was originally developed as a Boy Scout camp in the 1980s and was subsequently purchased and operated as a day camp by the San Joaquin River Parkway and Conservation Trust, or the River Parkway Trust, until the state purchased the property in 2012. In 2013, the Conservancy entered into a concessionaire's agreement for 5 years with the River Parkway Trust, and prior to the end of that agreement, Camp Pashayan was closed. And since that time, it has remained closed and is in need of site improvements in order to meet the minimum criteria for opening safely established by the Conservancy's governing board. Prior to reopening Camp Pashayan, the following site improvements are needed: fencing the property boundary, repairing and replacing bathroom and fixtures, repairing electrical, repairing water supply and infrastructure, repairing and repainting the shade structure, and purchasing trash cans, signs, and picnic tables. The Conservancy anticipates that up to $150,000 will be needed to complete the site improvements and meet the minimum criteria for opening safely. Project 2 is the River West Fresno Improvement Project. It's a 290-acre property that was purchased by the Conservancy in 2003. Oh no, and the Conservancy is requesting $1 million needed to fund the construction of the core project, which will include a trail, a parking lot, and site furnishings, including plantings, irrigation, and bathroom structure. And so in total, it's $1,150,000 the Conservancy is requesting for Measure P funding.
Thank you.
And again, those comments were provided electronically.
Thank you. We can go online now.
We have Brandy N.
Thank you. And of course, those in the chamber go first. Thank you so much for your time and for that presentation. Before I forget, I want to ask if maybe the presentation that was given, if it could be posted to the agenda. There is a annotated one that does not have the details of the budget numbers and doesn't have the motions on there, and that would be a lovely resource to have if that could be provided to the public. I want to thank you for the motion for the youth waiver. I recall when that was brought forth by some of our community groups a couple years ago or so, or more recently, and that has been a huge asset, as well as the other motions that were presented. And I hope to be able to speak or at least email and spend more time to make recommendations before and on the 18th. But two suggestions I want to make, and I again apologize for not preparing more and looking into it, is one potential thing is that in mentioning Beautify Fresno, if there is opportunities for employable opportunities to get our community to be involved in cleaning. I know that we have volunteers, but I also know that one of the things that I've heard from many people in the unhoused community is a need for jobs and help with jobs. And while I know that's other departments, and I hope that there could be through planning community development help with creating a program that would be able to help those who are currently unhoused to be able to get into employment. One suggestion that some people had made multiple times is employment to be able to help with cleaning and keeping the areas cleaned up. So I want to suggest something along that lines as a consideration. And also one concern I had about a year and a half ago, there was a power outage due to the storms, and Mosquito Center, which was used for a warming center, lost our power. And so those who were at the warming center could not stay there overnight. And I know that those emergencies don't happen very often, but, and I haven't looked into it to see what we have and what has been done since then, but wanted to suggest the idea of having, looking into making sure that in the event of things like power outages, especially in extreme weather, that we have generators and other things at our community centers, as these community centers are used to protect our community during inclement weather. And want to ask if that could be looked into as far as ensuring that we have everything that we need in case we lose power or other things happen, so that these community centers could still be used for those. And I look forward to learning.
There are no more speakers online.
Thank you.
Chair McCoy, do you mind? I've heard this a couple times that the agenda items are missing the supporting material. I went and verified every document that we presented tonight is online. So if anyone's having issues, I'd be happy to point them in the right direction as to where to find that information.
Okay, thank you. I will now close public comment. Does any member of the commission have questions or comments regarding this item? Commissioner Barraza?
Madam Chair, what I wanted to know is, and I'd like to ask Public Works staff, how much money is the Conservancy eligible to use or to be allocated to them as of now?
Unfortunately, Public Works is gone. We'd be happy to follow up with you and get you that information.
Can you send it out to all of us, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, and do you have a sense of how much it's generated annually for them from the 18%, I think is the percentage, right?
Not in front of me. I think we just have the material list. Do you have the information? Okay.
So as you saw in the first slide of that previous presentation, what you're looking for is Subfund 2707, and that's designated as the San Joaquin River Parkway aspect of the funding. And so you can see from that one that in that fund, $922,200 in revenue is estimated for FY25.
So the total, so does this have, is that number, would that number be the balance? When this, where it says total revenue on the left side, and then you go up to San Joaquin River Parkway, is that, which one is the number that you're referring to? The
Sure.
1.9 million or?
Yeah, apologies for that. Yeah, it's, if you look, the beginning balance for FY25 was estimated to be 1.995 million.
Okay.
So that would be the carryover from FY23, anything that was unexpended up until the adoption of the fiscal year 2025 budget. And then we anticipate, or the Department of Public Works anticipates 922,200 in additional revenue, tax revenue in FY25, and additional 13,200 in other revenue. So that would make approximately $2,931,000 available as revenue in the FY25 budget as adopted. But as it relates to your previous questions about annual revenue, you want to look at the tax revenue for that.
So 2.9 million is what's available for future allocations?
That's the revenue that was appropriated into the FY 2025 budget.
Okay.
So of that revenue, you can see below that the Department of Public Works appropriated $1.148 million.
Okay.
That's $798,300 for operating expenditures and $350,000 for capital. And there is also a small allocation, if you look to the left, under the Parks Department of $1,359,300, and that's for the project that the Parks Department is doing at the Milburn Overlook.
So the unexpended balance available is how much?
Let me get a calculator real quick here for you. So if we add together the amount that's appropriated in the Parks Department and the amount that's appropriated in the Public Works Department, that total is about 2.5 million. You can see about 2.9 million was estimated in revenue. So that would leave approximately $400,000 of anticipated revenue that's not currently appropriated for expenditure in the FY25 budget as adopted.
And the amount that was being requested in the presentation we just saw a moment ago, has that been discussed with staff? And what is your position in regard to that request?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which request you're referring to.
So you mean the Camp Pashayan request that?
Yeah, the request.
So that's totally separate from the San Joaquin River Conservancy and Parkway?
Is that the same pot of money, or is it different?
No, she was asked, if I'm correct, it's not the...
It is.
It is?
Yeah, it is, yes.
Okay, I thought it was a ask, not a inclusion.
I think, Chair McCoy, the request is to come out of Category 5.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, Executive Director, correct?
Yeah.
So the ask of the $1,150,000 would be a request out of Category 5 for those two projects, if I'm correct.
Okay.
And do you support or do you, what's your position in regard to that request?
I'll defer to the Parks Director on that one.
Right. I think, in just receiving this today and working with Public Works Administration, I don't know if we really have the ability to give you an up or down. To be honest with you, I have not been there to see this. So I think more research on our end's done in partnership with Public Works and the administration would be needed to give you an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, so you haven't been out to Camp Pashayan yet?
It's been a while. It's been about a year. So
okay.
But it was under a different format, so I have not seen these specific projects that are being referenced here. So I would probably need to get out there to see and probably have Public Works in attendance as well.
Because this project has been ongoing for, what, 3 years, 2 years now? Camp Pashayan? When the first talks of it, when they were taking people and talking about what can be done and holding workshops and things like that, because I remember Councilmember Mike Kabasi being out there, and one of the concerns was the shooting range that's right there. And how to bring vegetative barriers out there to kind of like conceal the sounds of the shooting range going on. But it received a lot of support, and a lot of youth has visited out there. So I'm just surprised that city park staff hasn't been out there in a while.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead.
So we had our subcommittee meeting and we had our tour, and we did visit both these projects and a third one. And then the subcommittee report, we have this project was one of the ones we want to bring forward, but I don't know the appropriate time to go into detail about that. Except the executive director's here today to present it. And we did give several dates to come out, and the parks, you guys were invited, but I don't know why those times didn't line up, but I'm sure they'd be happy to, I'm speaking on their behalf maybe, but we've been working together and, be happy to present those projects as much little detail as to get this funding working for the Parkway. They're ready to go. Subcommittee was ready. We all came out. I don't know what else we need to get that to the next step, I guess, is whatever you need, we're ready to serve in that capacity.
I think just some time internally with the administration and with Public Works. I think we have some information here, but maybe some questions on my end with Public Works and the administration.
I would like to see this project come forward and be fully funded. As a project director with Fresno Building Healthy Communities, I did the community outreach on this project, and there was a lot of excitement on this project. So I know you guys said you need a little bit more time. You have some questions asked, but I would like to see some funding going towards the request if possible.
Right, and I think that's the commission's
yeah, we can
real
make
responsibility. You can make the motion,
we can
right?
make a recommendation.
But I think what
for
I'm
it.
referring to is, do I support the project? I don't know enough about it to say yes or no.
I'm not asking if you
right.
support the project.
One of the commissioners
yes.
did ask me that, but yeah, if you all wanted to make a motion regarding that, then that's absolutely your responsibility and obligation to do so.
But I would also like to see some funding on the city's end, not just from Measure P, but some funding towards city's end as well to go towards this project, because this will be something that's great. When we were doing community outreach for this project, we brought in tons of youth and families walking the trails, and we were able to get food trucks out there and really have a good time each time we gave a community event out there. And then at the same time, they have like the horse track over there, so the kids were able to see the horses and stuff like that. So this would be really great for that area. It's right off of 99. And this was something this was just green space that was not being utilized. And this would be great for that community over there, as well as the whole entire community of Fresno, just like the 49 acres that's off of Peach. So I just would like to see us allocate or make a recommendation for funding for this project, but as well as city allocating some funding for the project as well. Commissioner Barraza.
Madam Chair, just for the purpose of making an informed decision as to discuss the possibility of a motion, I haven't heard anything from the subcommittee, and I'm glad to hear that you are actually supporting that. Perhaps if we could hear more information from our subcommittee as to why you feel comfortable that we should, as a commission, make a recommendation to the council and just give us more information. That's what I don't have, and that's what I'd like to have.
Yeah, it would have been nice to get that during the subcommittee updates about this project right here. But I will go ahead and give you the floor so you can provide a little bit more information if you feel comfortable doing it tonight.
Sure. Yeah, there were 3 projects that we went and looked at. 2 of them are presented here, but the subcommittee was looking at a different project than what was presented today, and then the Camp Pashan project to move forward. But my understanding, I guess, my question for Carrie would be why change it to the River West project, I guess. Has that changed from our last committee report?
We aren't ready to move forward with the third project that we discussed at the board tour. At this time, we still need to present that to our conservancy board before we can move forward with asking for funding.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
So it's a timing thing. Oh,
Yeah.
no worries. It caught me off guard because anyway, yes, of the projects, the priority projects, Camp Pashan is one of the ones that the Conservancy and the Parkway Trust was there too. That would be, quote, low-hanging fruit for as much money as it needs to get it open to the public. And the needs on here were listed, and the amount now is $150,000. And I guess my question that I haven't gotten answered yet is, So I know we can make recommendations now for the upcoming fiscal year, but if there's 400,000 that isn't allocated in the current budget, can we do motions for current year budget, or
No.
is it just for upcoming?
Just upcoming, just the fiscal year 2025.
Okay.
I mean, fiscal year 2026.
So if there's funding not being utilized and there are projects ready to go, or we could recommend for current funds, should we not recommend, do we recommend them for, is there nothing we can do, I guess, with that current funding that's available, or do we just focus on next year and then just hope that maybe somebody's listening and they'll maybe help with this year's budget? I don't know how that works. I guess some clarity would be nice.
Yeah, if I can clarify just a little bit. So the 400,000 that I identified, that's based on an estimate, right? So the FY25 budget has estimated revenues, and then it has expenditure appropriations. So even though there's $400,000 more estimated revenue than there is expenditure appropriated, it's not a guarantee that that actual revenue will manifest, right?
So what I'm hearing is we can't make any expenditure requests because the revenues and the expenditures are totally different.
So that's a different topic, I believe. So I think if I can defer to the city attorney on the question about the FY25 recommendation.
So, so you can only make recommendations for the upcoming budget. You can't make any recommendations for a budget that's already been approved by the council. So you can, make a motion to allocate a certain amount for next year's budget for council's consideration. We cannot do this current budget. It's already been voted for, approved, and so that one is pretty much off the table now.
Okay, well, the recommendation for the subcommittee was the Camp Pashayan project and then another project which the executive director from the Conservancy just said they're not actually ready to move forward on, but perhaps by the next time we do budget recommendations, it will be in the spring, possibly, depending on, how far along they get. But the subcommittee would approve the Camp Pashayan, and I'm speaking for Rose and Laura that aren't here today. But I hope that answered your question. Plus, I had other questions.
The part that makes it even more confusing is that the request says fiscal year 25. And is that an error, or was it intended to be for 26? Because our agenda says make recommendations to the City Council for adoption of expenditures in connection to the Parks Department fiscal year 2026 budget. So I think
I'm not sure which paper you're referring to.
I'm repeating a little bit, and City Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong. Our City Attorney pointed out that what we're discussing is making recommendations for fiscal year 2026, and the request relates to fiscal year 25.
It's probably just error because the Conservancy prepared this letter. So it's probably, and we can bring them up and ask them, but it was probably an error because we are on recommendations for FY 2026. So can you please come up and clarify that so we can get it on record, please?
Yes, so I orally stated that it was for fiscal year 26 budget. My letter incorrectly has fiscal year 25. I was using a slide from the previous PRAC commission that has fiscal year 25, and I was just writing it quickly to get this sent over to you before tonight's meeting. So it's a request for this upcoming fiscal year budget.
That clarifies it for me. So is the subcommittee supporting this request?
Yeah, for the Camp Pashayan project in particular, yes. River West, we haven't discussed as a subcommittee.
Okay.
Like for budget recommendations. But we did get to look at the project. So.
So for any budget recommendations, we have this meeting and then we have the November 18th meeting, which will be our last meeting to make any recommendations. So if you need a little bit more time to discuss making a recommendation when it comes in regards to Camp Cheyenne and any other project with the comments that was, you can do it tonight, or you have November 18th will be the last time.
With all the clarifications that have been made, I feel comfortable in supporting the recommendation made by the subcommittee.
So we have to hear it in a motion in a dollar amount, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So without, okay, let's say like to make a motion to allocate up to $150,000 for the Camp Cheyenne project as part of Bucket 5, San Joaquin Parkway, San Joaquin Parkway. There we go.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The recommendation has been made.
I think there may be another recommendation for more funding. We can prepare that depending on the subcommittee's preferences, working with them on River West or this other project that we went to go see that we were very interested in. But I think it's premature today to make that recommendation without them.
Okay.
Yeah. But just so you know, I think we'd like to make another one because there's more funding available than $150,000.
Yeah, have November 18th will be the last meeting to make that recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a pending motion that we took back to get some clarifying language, and I'd like to bring that back up. This is the suggested language that you guys helped me come up with. All right, so I would like to allocate $75,000 for a mentorship program targeting youth ages 9 to 17 with the focus on academic support, workforce readiness, and general mentorship. Do I have a motion? Oh, I made the motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Sorry, I missed the last meeting, so I'm a little late catching up. So before I can support a motion, I was wondering how we came up with that figure.
Well, we had a presentation
Okay.
last meeting about community engagement and neighborhood safety and focusing on youth. And I noticed that a lot of the focus has been on youth boys and not youth girls, but we also don't have a mentorship for kids from the ages of 9 to 17. Just creating a safe space and being able to prepare them for workforce readiness, such as preparing resumes, how to answer questions in a job interview, how to dress for a job interview, things like that. Academic support as far as homework support, what type of classes to take, making sure they're on track to graduate, things like that, in addition to their counselor that they may have in school, and just overall general mentorship. I feel that that's a component that's missing from the youth.
I completely agree. I think these are all great services and programs that are needed. I'm just wondering how we came up with this figure. It seems low for everything.
Well, that's because there's nothing in place, and just to be able to start to explore to see how we would or how we can come up with something like that. So the $75,000 is just to start to look into it, because we know that it's going to cost money, and to also seek partnerships.
So the $75,000, just to get some clarification, and again, I apologize for not being better prepared, but would be to like pilot a program, or and this would be like at one location.
Like that, I'm willing to amend it if you want to make it more, but I would like to have this motion on record.
Yeah, I again completely support this. I'm just wondering that 75,000 figure, again, what that would cover. Like, is it covering a position? It just, I would like to personally see more investment.
Well, right now the $75,000 is just to start to explore the mentorship program, see what's needed, how would it be conducted, how would it be implemented because there's no such program. They only do a 7-week paid training program with a mentorship, and that's primarily done in the summertime, and then there's nothing else left.
So I can understand better when you say explore, what exactly does that mean? Is it like a consult, like?
Yeah, like a consultant.
A consultant,
Uh-huh.
okay, thank you. Okay, I appreciate it, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So you want to keep the dollar amount the way it is to consult?
Sure.
Okay. So all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Okay, we got that motion. And then we do have your motion, Commissioner Kurcharski, that's number 2, the pending motion. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to wait until November 18th?
Is that the one I was just referring to? Because I
The
haven't.
sustainability program to expand their work to provide conservation services?
Yeah, I'd like to expand on that one. I think we talked about it being directed towards, I met with the Parks Department, and they suggested that it's focused more on the landscape maintenance components of under Public Works, so that the opportunities and challenges can be assessed for conservation in more detail. Because I think that there are some opportunities there for more native plantings and just practices in sustainability and conservation that require some investment in gathering and collecting in order to know how to best move forward. So the motion would be more specific to the Public Works Division than it would be just overall, so that hopefully it's more successful. I guess that's what the purpose of the conversation was, unless Director Aguirre has some comment to make.
No, I think you're spot on. In talking with Commissioner Kucharski, I think the focus was more on park maintenance and sustainability and conservation. We talked through some of our current designs that are in the works that include native plantings, and that being more of a design standard as we move forward. Some of the conservation related to building is addressed through some of the building code items. And then really, I think this focusing on some of our maintenance efforts, going through, just for instance, as we find a limb down or a tree that's removed, we're taking those wood chips and either broadcasting those back into the landscape and or using those along trails or landscape beds that do 2 things for us: retain moisture and then act as a weed barrier. Those type of conservation and sustainability items that we are currently doing. Are there others out there that maybe we aren't doing? Looking at maybe irrigation controllers. A lot of times we have the controllers that have ET or have rain delays, to conserve water. Are there other activities that maybe the department isn't looking at, or something that we could implement based on our current practices? So I think the motion would be to help engage an outside consultant of some sort, or whatever that means may be, to really evaluate the sustainability and conservation aspects related to the landscape maintenance operation.
The motion would be to allocate an amount not to exceed $75,000 for outside consultant or internal personnel that's qualified to assess the conservation practices of the landscape maintenance division of the city.
I kind of
You guys do that, right?
right, and maybe something along the lines of allocate up to, what was your dollar amount? 75?
Yeah.
75,000 to engage a consultant to evaluate the sustainability and conservation aspects related to the park landscape maintenance operations. Does that capture it?
That sounds better than what I said. Yeah.
I second it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Do we have any other recommendations from any of the other commissioners?
Madam Chair, where's my, can't find my microphone. Last year, the commission approved a motion to provide some funding for lighting at what's another park?
El Radka.
The El Radka Park. And one of the issues when you don't have lighting in the evening, a lot of the families, a lot of the parents are only available in the evening because they work during the day. Not having lighting, in fact, I've seen them where they turn on the lights of the car. I mean, this is not the USA, you know. So I would like to again make a motion that that there be. I was just wanting to get a sense of what that might cost. Maybe 300,000, you think, or?
If you, Commissioner Barraza, could hold off till next week, we just opened some bids on lighting projects.
Okay.
I could probably have a more accurate number than what I might tell you now. I might underrun the project here, but if we can provide you with that number this week, that way you're prepared to make that dollar amount motion next week, I think we'll have an accurate number that would be awardable if this project were to move forward as far as construction. So we have some cost matrix on other projects that are like in nature that I would feel more comfortable giving you those numbers that then we could potentially award it down the road. So if you don't mind.
Fine with me.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we will now move on to our last hearing for tonight. ID number 24-1486, hearing to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P, updates to the Parks Master Plan and Cultural Arts Plan, and annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes for comment. No one inside chambers, anyone online?
There are no speakers online.
All right, I will go ahead and close public comment. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item? All right, it is 8:18. As always, I would like to adjourn the meeting in the memory of Dr. Francina Puda. She is deeply missed, and thank you for your time and enjoying your evening. Good night.
Thank you.